For the past several years, there's been an ongoing conversation about intersectional feminism as a religion. I believe calling it a religion is unfair, because I would view it more like a cult. And I actually have something to show you that, in my opinion, really does prove it's a cult. And it's actually kind of scary. Now, a lot of people might find this story funny. We can see Lauren Chen tweeted, "Twitter's most notorious woke feminist is complaining that all her friends stopped hanging out with her when she tried pushing intersectionality on them. It's both hilarious and sad at the same time. Imagine alienating your best friends because they refuse to join your cult." It is a cult. But this is not funny, at least not to me. You might find it funny, that's fine. People find different things funny, but I'll tell you, this is terrifying. Listen, in the real world, cults use a variety of techniques to manipulate and control your behavior. One of them is surrounding you, telling you how much they love you, but then threatening to give you negative emotion and take that away unless you abide by their rules. It is exploiting a fundamental aspect of human nature, longing for belonging, that we want to be part of this group and we don't want to be kicked out. We want to do what's right. So when you're surrounded by a group of people saying this is what you have to do, otherwise we won't love you anymore, a lot of people will bend and say yes, absolutely. Now consider this. In the past, you could take someone like Sarah Rowe, or however you pronounce her name, and you could physically remove her from the cult. You could bring her somewhere safe and say, stop, it's a cult. And eventually you might be able to break through and save them from the cult. Sometimes people can break out and escape. They still can. Today, though, the cultists are everywhere. They surround you. They make harassing phone calls to businesses. They will text you. They will tweet you. You can't escape them. Someone can physically remove you, but then your phone buzzes and there it is, one of your followers, a member of the cult. And it's getting worse and it's expanding. What's truly terrifying about this story is how her friends tried to save her, saying, I'm really worried about you. We are worried about you. But she says, no, they won't give up their whiteness. What is whiteness? You're saying literally nothing to these people. It is a vague, nebulous term that you might think you can define, but you can't. Because we have seen articles. There was one article that said something like, black people are the white people of black people. Or I'm sorry, it said black men are the white people of black people. And it's like, what does that mean? Does it mean anything? It doesn't. So when a woman like this is sitting with her friends and she starts reading from her doctrine, her cult, the tenets of her cult, they look at her confused saying, honey, you're not saying anything, please. And she rejects them. She rejects her friends. And that's what's scary. They can't pull her from this cult. Now I want to read through this. And I also want to show you this article from Andrew Doyle, who is I believe it's safe to say, I'm pretty sure this is true. He runs the, Titania McGrath, the woke Twitter parody, which is really funny. And he talks about how it's a cult of victimhood. And he makes some really interesting points. So I want to read through Sarah's tweets and show you, how this is a cult and they tried to save her. Before we do though, check it out. I have a new channel. It's called Timcast IRL. This was my gaming channel, but I decided just to change it because the gaming stuff's never going to happen. And there's a few really important things pertaining to the woke stuff that I want to talk about real quick. Subscribe to this channel. This is going to be on the ground travel. It's going to be very, barely political, but there will be field reporting, on the ground reporting. A lot of the more, higher quality stuff will exist on Subverse. But this is essentially going to serve as a vlog channel while I travel the country with some friends, doing real conversations, on the ground reporting. And yeah, so it should be in the featured channels on this channel. I don't think there's a URL for it, so I don't know, it's probably gonna be difficult to find. But yeah, Timcast IRL, subscribe to that. And I'll tell you why. I explain it in this video, but I'll make that point really quick. The other day, my video critiquing the New York Times and showing, hey, people are mad at the New York Times, and one guy's been outed for being, I'll just say, a bigot. You see, I can't tell you specifically what the guy said, because the video was doing ridiculously well. It skyrocketed, like 80,000 views in an hour. That's amazing for my channel. And then all of a sudden it just dropped off to nothing. And I got a notice that there was hate speech. And so I looked in it, and sure enough, I didn't say any hate speech, but I was proving the New York Times did. The act of proving the New York Times are presenting hate speech got the video struck down. Not like a copyright strike, but it was like hard limited. The views were gone. So I went in, I blurred the slur from the New York Times reporter, And it came back. It came back after, like later in the day, after I made this video, I explained, I blurred it. They made me realize this is a cult and it's infecting everything. So I don't even know if it's safe to have a second channel. I shouldn't say second, a fourth channel. I'm trying to get away from politics, but that channel will exist because, you know, so I'm starting to get worried. Come 2020, they're gonna put us on the chopping block. So here's what Sarah said. She said, I was a white feminist until 2016. I was deeply self-loathing and internally oppressed. Nearly all my closest friends were white women. These women were in my wedding and I in theirs. They cradled me when I wept for my dead mother. They would have done anything for me, except give up whiteness. That literally means nothing. How do you give up whiteness? It is a cult mentality that makes no sense. What she was really saying is they refuse to bend to our cult. That's what she's saying. I spent 1 full year meeting with them for coffee, drinks, lunch, and dinner. I sent them articles. I wrote articles. I sent them those. Rather than show an interest in awakening, nearly all of them dumped me. Think about how psychotic and terrifying that is. Awakening. They wouldn't have an awakening into her cult. Check this out. Dumping has involved a pinch of ghosting, a dash of, quote, I'm really worried about you. We are really worried about you. It's involved leaving me and my family out of group plans and pretending it was an accident. There's a saying, if you smell human waste everywhere, check your boot. Okay, I'm gonna avoid swearing, you know I do. But she doesn't seem to understand. If all of your friends are abandoning you, you have the problem, not your friends. She says it's involved leaving me out of group plans and pretending it was an accident, which I said that already. Some of these women weren't really even friends before, but have bonded over their mutual disdain for me and my, quote, craziness. They've bonded around whiteness. She's truly lost it. She says, it's no different than the Klan. Instead of robes, they coalesce around brunch, wedding, spin classes. I no longer harbor anger towards them. I'd be lying if I said it didn't make me sad from time to time, because it does. But the overarching feelings I have are A, understanding. Understanding how they are all just reading from their whiteness script. A script they received before they were born, and B, fear. Fear that the intense love they had for me and my family wasn't enough to reflect on their own white supremacy. What hope do we have? Those who love us still love whiteness more by a long shot, the most powerful drug on the planet. This is truly a terrifying mentality, a window into the deranged mind of those who are infected with this cult, with this mind virus, as some people have described it. Now, I'm not referring to general aspects of social justice. Civil liberties, these things make sense. But this is the poison. I can certainly say something very obvious, like racism is bad. And we're going to put on an event in the Philadelphia area with one of the most famous men who de-radicalized racists, Daryl Davis. Truly an honor and inspiration to hear this man speak. And that's the goal. That's real social justice. Bringing people together, ensuring equality for all. What she's talking about are strange buzzwords that make no sense. A perversion of this idea that we can be better. An extreme ideology built around something we believe in. Now, I think it's on purpose. What do most people agree in the past 20, 30 years? Bigotry in all its forms. And I'm using their version, bigotry, I understand it means, but I mean like prejudice. It's a bad thing, and we want equality. Most of us agree, almost all, left and right. So what have they done? The cultists are exploiting our goodwill to create a cult, not to bring about fairness and equality, but to implement a radical economic transformation and to bring about an authoritarian system. That's not my opinion. It's what we see with the Green New Deal. They say something to the effect of, we're going to better the environment. And then you can hear from someone like John Delaney, there's nothing about the environment in it. I mean, 1 or 2 mentions, but what do they say? Free college, free healthcare, it's socialism? And that's the real play. They are exploiting our goodwill and longing for belonging to implement a radical economic and authoritarian transformation. They use cult strategies to get it done. I'm not saying it's on purpose. I'm not saying there's a cabal. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy. I'm saying this idea is an infection that is spreading and perverting true justice and equality for all. How can you claim to fight for equality and then single out the color of someone's skin and tell them to give it up? That makes no sense. How does, as one person says, Mindy Robinson says, how exactly did she expect white people to stop being white? What she's really saying is that they have this idea of whiteness, and it literally just means you have power and you should bow. And I mean that sincerely. They say like I mentioned earlier, as I think I did, they mentioned there's that article that said black men are the white people of black people. They talk about how 100 years ago Irish people weren't considered white. What they're really saying is you can be a dominant and successful individual, and you must bend the knee to the religion. They want you to bow in the literal sense. It is a religion. They want you to bow at the altar of wokeness and give up any control over your life that you've ever had. It is a religion. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I want to take that back. It's a cult. It is a cult, and I'll explain the difference. Religions have good things about them. Religions, many of them, not all, but many of them, offer something valid that actually helps humanity. It's true. A lot of people might not want to recognize that. They might say that Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, I don't know, whatever religion is, they're bad things, and they'll point to the bad things about them. I certainly won't deny there's a lot of bad things in a lot of religions, but it's also important to point out that some of our most important beliefs come from, are codified and come from some of these religions. It does make sense sometimes to tell people to try and give up that control and that rage. And so a religion, in my opinion, brings about unity and community, and there can be bad aspects of it. But a cult, in my opinion, is destructive, extremely destructive. And there are certainly religions that are destructive too. So it's a fine line, I'll admit. But you're looking to something like Christianity and Judaism and Judeo-Christian values, we can see things like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and the idea that we must protect the innocent at all costs. From this story, at least my understanding, is that we ended up with Blackstone's formulation. It is better that the guilty go free than the innocent suffer. So there are, within religion, things that make sense. I'm not a religious person, I'll admit. But I draw the line at, cult and religion. This is a cult. Why? It serves no purpose but destruction and control. You can argue that about religions, but some people would, especially atheists. I disagree with that. I think there are people who can read the Bible, who can read the Torah, who can even read the Quran and learn some, and have a philosophical understanding of something about life. Especially if they have a wise, elder who can help guide them through some of the, older texts. And certainly Buddhism has many wonderful and fantastic tenets to it. This cult brings about violence, absolute violence, extremism, and it doesn't seem to serve any purpose. It doesn't enlighten anybody. It doesn't teach you philosophy. It doesn't teach you protecting the innocent. It does the opposite. It wants you to punish the innocent and mock them and berate them and throw bricks through windows. That is a terrifying cult. And this is what we can see. I'll wrap up here. We can see someone whose friend said, "I'm worried about you." That was someone saying, "Please, you're in a cult. You need to stop," and her refusing. Instead, they claim her friends have bonded around whiteness, this vague, nebulous term that means very little to the, outside of this cult. To those in the cult, I bet they can't even define what it is. And the reason I say this is because I've read the articles. I've tried to find a cohesive, singular definition of what whiteness really is. There doesn't seem to be one. There doesn't. Because you will get 50 different definitions of what it is. Now, admittedly, religions are similar, but I will stress, I would be really worried if this becomes an overarching ideology, but I will say, it seems that this religion is infecting colleges. That's scary. It's infecting the media. It's really scary. And some people argue that the only difference between a cult and a religion is the size of the cult. And I disagree. I really, really disagree. There are dangerous aspects to many religions. There are people who carry out actions that fly in the face of what that religion stands for. But does wokeness advocate for peace? Quite the opposite. It's the woke who tend to say we can't change minds, and they call for violence. In fact, within the Abrahamic religions, they don't. To an extent, I understand. The point is, you can call it a transformation, or you can say that quite literally, Jesus said to turn the other cheek. Could you imagine someone who was woke, an Antifa guy showing up to a protest, and when he sees the Proud Boys, he presents his cheek? Absolutely not. They show up with crowbars and baseball bats. That's a huge difference. Maybe, there are violent religions. I'm not going to get into all of that. So maybe there, like I said, it's a fine line. But this is a cult that makes no sense, that has vague and nebulous rules, using words that no one quite understands, and they find everything offensive because in reality, it doesn't matter if you're saying woman with a Y or Wimixen with an X. They're both offensive. And the reason is, no matter what you do, it's whiteness, and it's about time you bow to those in power. That's what they want. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment will be coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. I will see you all then.